It's a fascinating place. It really is. It's quite interesting. If there isn't anything that you can find of interest in Fells Point, then maybe you need to start looking at yourself.
This is one of the most eclectic communities in the city. You will see bankers, dentists, technicians sitting right next to and beside and talking with. Carpenters, woodworkers, electricians, brick masons.
Fells Point is a great community to call home, and it has to do with how livable, walkable, and enjoyable it is to be here on a daily basis. Just about anything you could want is right here in Fells Point.
The community itself is a little bit like the water out here. It's always a little different, it's always a little changing, and it's always fun.
My personal history with Fells Point is that my great-grandmother and my 2-year-old grandmother came to Fells Point right off the boat, settled onto Shakespeare Street, and my great-grandmother never moved again. My great-grandmother supported herself and my grandmother with a market stall, and many, many, many years later, my mother worked for me in a market stall in that same market, and I'm told in approximately the same area of that market. So 5 generations of the women of my family have raised families or supported families in the Fells Point area. For 20 years I represented the Fells Point area and other areas of southeast Baltimore in the Maryland State Legislature. And I hope that what my great-grandmother and my grandmother brought to Fells Point, I was able to take to the state legislature. My heart is here and will always be here.
It seems like every week I discover another favorite place here, and whenever I have friends come down to visit, I always try to take them to the Fells Point Visitor Center first. It basically is dedicated to the days when the privateers were coming out of Fells Point.
Good afternoon. I'm James Wheeler. I'm a resident shipwright here at the Fells Point Visitor Center. Fells Point has always been a blue-collar working community. It's on the waterfront. This is where the first warehouse was built. The ships were built here in Fells Point because Baltimore's waterfront was too shallow to build ships. Well, what I do here in Fells Point is I build model ships, model boats, and tools. The shaving horse I'm sitting on is an old-fashioned workbench.
Well, there is a little bit more about Fells Point that does kind of bring out the pirate or privateer in a person, at least the fun-loving side of it. We're not very far from Fort McHenry, which is a place that was bombarded by sea by the British in 1814. And what they were trying to do was shut down any production of the privateer schooners, such as the Pride of Baltimore would be a good example, which was taking place in Fells Point.
I'm Herman Hein. I'm a native Baltimorean, City College, class of '49. Every person on Earth should have at least one opportunity in their lifetime to look through a telescope at the moon or some of the planets, because they're beautiful to see through a telescope. I feel lucky that Baltimore has a place like Fells Point for me, a telescope man, to set up. It's a good space. There's a lot of people going back and forth. There's a good view of the part of the sky that I want to look at, and it's safe.
The second half of the last century, I guess, Fells Point changed completely. I suppose it began with the beginning of the Stop the Road project there, and it went on to become less ethnic, I guess, and more younger people looking for something different rather than the families renewing themselves in the same area. But they come with an enthusiasm, and a lot of them with a real devotion.
I'm Scott Burkholder.
And I'm Jennifer Burkholder.
And we've lived in Fells Point for 5 years. It's wonderful to live on a block that has likely been around for over 150 years. It's awesome to see the different architecture that brings to play. Just up the block, we have Frederick Douglass homes that were actually built by one of America's most iconic figures. We love living in Fells Point for its historic charm.
This year I volunteered with the Fells Point Fun Festival, and that was a unique experience to see what goes on behind the scenes, to understand the commitment that so many people have to this neighborhood, the hard work that everyone puts into it. It's a great testament to what it means to have a strong fabric.
I look forward to its future. I think it's bright. I think the new immigrants that are moving in are just as exciting as the ones who moved in 100 years ago or more. It's a lovely place to be. Even it was before, it is now. It's different, but it's still a wonderful place to be.
Everybody comes to Fells Point, and they all have fun.